Thank you for staying with Friday Night. Born in a humble Ma village in Kajiado County, the son of the area chief rose above cultural norms to become a hotelier. That hotelier would later be appointed Cabinet Secretary Interior, a position that would serve as the greatest test of his ability to handle a national security emergency. According to the public jury, his handling of the Westgate terror attack in Nairobi illustrated inability and ineffectiveness in heading such a sensitive docket. 6 years later, Joseph Ole Lenku talks of the pain the online massacre on his character caused him and how that fueled a fire in him to rise above his critics and lead again, this time as Kajiado County Governor. The son of a paramount chief carries the wisdom of his father on his shoulders. His father was one of the wealthiest Maasai leaders with an enviable herd.
My father was a paramount chief in the older Kenyatta government, and he was the leader of his age group. And so in Maasai standards, I will easily say I grew up in an affluent setting. Of course, in the Maasai environment, literally everybody is equal. Even when you are a chief, your life still revolves around cows, you live in the same housing.
His father's wish was that the young Ole Lenku would take over the reins of power as chief.
How I went to school is because there was a warden, a British warden called Lovett Smith, who was a friend to my father. We come from around Amboseli. And David Lovett Smith told my father, your son that you want to be a chief in future like you must go to school because times are changing. And so I would say my father spotted the leadership in me because that is why I was picked among many children to go to school.
His father might have seen leadership qualities in him, but it wasn't forthcoming, at least not initially. His first attempt at national elective politics was in the year 2003.
Contesting leadership has been very interesting. In Kenya Utalii College, I ran for student leader. I wasn't successful. I ran for MP in 2003 after the death of Parpai. Of course, I came a dismal 4. And so there has also been wins and losses along the line.
His career choice as a hotelier is of interest to many, especially because he rose to become a cabinet secretary in the Interior Ministry.
It is basically a case of growing up in the wilderness where you literally have no parents to guide you. So it is like friends would say there is this, and then you go and then you find it working. So when I went to Kenya Utalii College, I seem to have liked it rather than BA at Kenyatta. And that's the time I got into the hospitality line.
The former general manager at Utalii College and Serena Hotels says he felt he had reached the apex of his career in the hotel industry. He wanted to do something different.
Along the way, I got bored. I felt like, no, this is not good enough. So I went to run for politics. I remember my boss, the CEO of Serena Hotels, Jan Mohammed, mentioning to me, Joseph, how can you leave such a wonderful career, a great institution, to pursue politics? He released me single, half-heartedly, and in a way that you go, but make sure you come back because you'll not make it. So I went and I failed. I refused to go back because it was like a humiliation.
Ole Lenku would later be appointed cabinet secretary in President Uhuru Kenyatta's government with no experience on security matters.
I applied for a PS job and I was interviewed. I was actually informed I was shortlisted for PS and my name has been forwarded to the president. So when the president called me to State House and talked to me, I knew I was being interviewed for PS. And in an interesting turn of events, I was appointed CS Interior. And so I think that drama is in public.
He came under scrutiny as the cabinet secretary responsible for internal security after the Westgate mall attack, where unidentified gunmen attacked the mall in Nairobi on the 21st of September 2013.
In the face of all the insult, the innuendos, the very many bad things said about me, to me, It was giving my country my all, including my life, if that called for it.
He was heavily criticized during and after the crisis, especially after his theory that the black smoke coming out of the Westgate Mall was as a result of the terrorists burning mattresses at a supermarket within the mall.
It didn't quite bother me, the side shows, the accusations, the burning mattresses story. What to me it was that Kenya must win against terrorism.
After barely serving for 20 months, Ole Lenku became a casualty of the rising insecurity in the country in the eyes of the public jury.
You know, people said Ole Lenku was fired. You know, people said I was being paid the CS salary even when I was out of office. But to me, the most important thing is I still maintained a very good relationship with my boss, the president. The truth is, I requested the president that the country was under such attack and it's been said to look personal, that the pressure on the government was becoming unbearable because of the accusation leveled against me. Some people are saying this is a cook, this is an unfit man. And so when it reached there, I asked the president, for the sake of the country, even for his own sake, please allow me to step aside.
This, he says, was an extremely difficult time for him.
When I went to politics, and I would ask for votes, people will ask, oh, this is the Lenku of TV. And a few guys will even go a notch higher and say, oh, this is the Westgate guy.
It would therefore come as a shocker to family and friends when the 49-year-old expressed interest in the Kajiado gubernatorial race.
When I told my inner circle, close friends, that I will run for governor, many of them say, please don't. You have gone through such a difficult situation. A bad image has been created of a failure. And they thought it will not be possible to win it. And so they thought I will subject my family to the pain that they went through, because my family went through a lot during my tenure in Interior.
Today, Ole Lenku is serving as the second governor of Kajiado County after emerging triumphant.
Maasai community is one of the communities that rejected modern education. And so many are in the state there because they never went to school. So education remained a key area of focus for me as governor. We notice in the deep rural Kajiado, a number of children barely have anything for breakfast when they go to school. And so they cannot sustain learning throughout the day. And we say to make sure that these children have energy for the day, we introduce fortified porridge across the entire county to sustain our children. And we discovered interesting things. One, some children who are not going to school learn that there is something called wuji or fortified porridge, that if we go to school, we get this wuji. And in the process, we get to attract all the children to school. To bring order in the land sector, we began the spatial planning process where we are saying, for land use, for these specific areas, we are going to have areas for our towns, we're going to have areas for industries, we are going to have areas for agriculture, and even areas for our wildlife and for our cattle ranchers. That spatial planning demands that if you buy land at this designated area, you cannot put a real estate in an industrial area or bring factories into a real estate area or do anything else where we are supposed to have the ranching business. We are starting to encourage our farmers, the ranchers, to stop this business of moving from place to place because land is becoming limited and they get to lose their livestock. And there's even no place to move because of population increase. So now we began a process of encouraging these people to keep hay for their livestock, to get to know these seasonal patterns that are becoming severe day by day because of climate change. And so as a county government, we set up a demonstration farm because we have land, and in this demonstration farm, we are showing people how to keep a good number of cows in a small land and even introduce other feeding programs to their cows without necessarily having to move to their cows. Our hospital system has improved to the extent that now where our people used to go and seek services, and the opposite is true. Such services as a renal unit for dialysis, CT scan, modern maternity, have given people of Kajiado such hope that we must sustain this development.
Ole Lenku is married to Edna Chelagat Lenku, a woman he describes as his best friend. They have 4 children. His mother is also one of his pillars.
Family is the backbone of my strength. Time and again I have said, had it not been for the blessing of family, and specifically my wife, I think I would not have endured the fights, the battle, the pain, the difficulties of life. So my wife and my family has actually been the pillar and the backbone of my strength.
Joseph Ole Lenku sums up this interview by saying, and I quote, "My story would not be complete without mentioning courage, faith, and family."
At the time we were in Interior, when everything was collapsing around me, my family came to tell me, "We are with you, you're a strong man, you're a great father."
He has risen above the black smoke, earned his stripes through the trying times that delivered him to his higher self.
Particularly for the Ma community, the leadership of my father. The older generation, when the president picked me for CS Interior, many would say, "Oh, how did the president get to know that this boy comes from our leadership lineage?" So to me, it was to say, I am not done with my country. I must do more. To me, it was to say, our county must have better tidings and better leadership than it was having. I had nothing to hide, to fear to go back to the public, because I never wronged the public.
To live the dream of his father, a Maasai chief whose son is today the governor of Kajiado County.